What's up and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod, your weekly look what's going on in pop culture. My name is Pat Sheehan. I'm here with my co-host Dave Martinson. Dave, you Machiavellian. I see you, man. I see you. We'll leave it at
the
that.
number one boy.
Man, Secession wrapped up last night, and we got a lot to talk about because it was a show we didn't get a chance to preview, and by the time we kind of were able to catch up, we figured we just let the season wrap up and give our thoughts. So we have a whole season to talk about, a lot of great moments, also some rap and hip hop albums to talk about today. So before we dive into anything, hit that subscribe button on YouTube, Nowstalgia Pod on YouTube, SoundCloud.com/Nowstalgia Pod. Go to our Twitter, Nowstalgia Pod, and give us a follow there. Share us with friends. Help us grow. We appreciate it. Dave, why don't we start with Mac Miller? Because we got a couple albums. We're going to be talking YG and Travis Scott as well. But Mac Miller is somebody we've talked about in here. We reviewed Divine Feminine, 2 years ago, 2016?
Fall 2016, yep.
So it's been a little under 2 years since his last album. And we really, I think we enjoyed his album. I think we said artistically he's a solid artist, kind of in that tier of, he's going to keep making solid records, but maybe not that superstar level. Mm-hmm. But he's had some hard times this year, man. Ariana Grande dumped him and immediately got engaged to Big Dick Pete Davidson. And then
so weird.
So weird. And then kind of soon after, he got in some legal trouble with a DUI and a hit and run. So he's had a pretty rough year. How did it play out in this album?
I think, by all accounts, it seems the album came out pretty darn good. I don't know how much of the current events impacted this record. He was in the studio for a while, but yeah, this is definitely the product of that loss, I would say. And I think it came out pretty well. But what did you think, considering a lesser or milder Mac Miller fan than I?
Yeah, anyone that wants to go back and listen to our review of Divine Feminine, you can find that at SoundCloud.com/NowstalgiaPod. I was big into Mac when he dropped Blue Slide Park and some of his mixtapes, but I haven't really been super into his recent work. But I really enjoyed this album. It's a little more, I don't know if melancholy is the right word, but mellow. And it kind of relies more on keys, orchestras. I got a lot of a Frank Ocean or some of the songs kind of sounded Anderson .Paak-y in a way. I think there's
sure. They had a song on Divine Feminine.
Yeah, I think he's really trying to follow their creative lane right now, and it's a great creative lane to be in, and he pulls it off pretty well. The only thing I think I can say is it did sound a little homogeneous throughout. Some of the songs sounded similar, and I think he delivers the songs really well, but also some of the content, while introspective, I didn't find super intriguing at times, but overall, really solid effort. I know you're a bigger Mac fan. Was this what you expected from him at this time, I guess?
No, yeah, I really like this. I mean, you already kind of spoke to it, but Mac Miller came up 9 years ago, long time ago, as kind of became the poster boy of, frat rap, white frat rappers, right? Because he quickly became the most famous one. And that music was fine, but it's, a lot of people really didn't like it. And I actually really don't like listening to it now. I was a big fan of it at the time. But then, his whole progression, the music he's making now is so much
light years,
obviously much better. And, it's really been fun watching this career improve as he's gone. You could see the seeds of this on his Macadelic tape in 2012. And then watching movies with the sound off, his second album, the one after Blue Slide Park in 2013, was this quantum leap. It's oh wait, Mac Miller's now your favorite rapper's favorite rapper. Everybody fucks with him. Schoolboy Q fucks with him, right? And on Macadelic, he had a Kendrick feature in 2012, for example. He had Joey Badass's first official feature, So he quickly was becoming this ingratiated in mainstream hip hop, right? And as he's grown, like I think Good AM again was his best record date at the time. I think Divine Feminine isn't as good as this new record, Swimming. But you kind of see like the through line, like Ariana Grande like was his muse on that one, and now she's his ex muse, his something he lost in his life. And I think the introspectiveness, like you said, is certainly present. Yeah, maybe not always super interesting, super fun to revisit, but I think it's pretty compelling. And now the guy who was a frat rapper and pissing everyone off just because he's just a moron, right? Now he's like he just hangs out with Sid and Thundercat. Like that's what he likes to do, and
hell yeah,
out on his like 30 pianos that he has, So it's been really cool. He's only 26 too. It's like he's still young, but yeah, I think this record's really cool. There's a lot of fun songs on it. I think Perfecto and Ladders are pretty dope. Jet Fuel I liked. And then Small Worlds was on here. That was from that trio of Lucy's he dropped at the end of May, right when Pusha T was going after Drake around that time. And I thought that was an interesting choice to keep on this because my favorite record of those three Lucy's was Programs, which is on our Spotify playlist. So check that out if you're not already following that. And Programs was much more aggressive, just rapidy rap Mac, right? But I was thinking, I was like, well, I like that song more. It probably wouldn't have fit on Swimming. Swimming, he's more reserved and mellow in his delivery. So, I think sometimes that delivery doesn't always work, especially in Divine Feminine. You saw this where he's, growing a lot as a singer, but he's still not a great singer. So sometimes his vocals can be a little off, but again, he's always seems to be trying things. So I was again, pleasantly surprised with now he made a funky ass album. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's funny thinking back to Blue Slide Park and then this album, Blue Slide Park being his proper first album. Up All Night and like Frick Park Market, Party on Fifth Ave, like such a different sound. I think there's elements to those. I think he always kind of like had like brass sections, and I think there were parts of his just musical interest that he's now starting to explore more with these, and a much more mature sound, like you said. But Mac Miller I find to be kind of compelling. I was checking out his recent Tiny Desk concert, which I think they put on YouTube this weekend, which was awesome.
Shout out
yeah, and he's like you said, he's working with people like Thundercat, Schoolboy Q, some people that definitely take a different tone, a different lane in this. And I'm really excited to see where his career is going to go, because I think he has potential to make, and probably not on the level of Kendrick Lamar, but kind of in that same vein, something that could use the sound of To Pimp a Butterfly. And if he has something he actually really wants to say, I could see him having like a record that could be a top 10 record in a year.
Yeah. And I agree. And I think what's probably good for him right now is he's famous, he's well known, and he was quite famous pre Ariana Grande, but obviously that really catapulted him just in terms of casual people knew who he was, right?
Right.
And now he just exists in this space where the rap game likes him. He's connected as fuck. He started out as independent, one of the most successful independent artists we've ever had. But then he, kind of played out that. So now he's on Warner, and he's a dependable artist for Warner. So he has a lot of label support. But there's no pressure on Mac Miller. Like this weekend, Mac Miller and YG dropped, and behind Travis Scott. Travis Scott's Astroworld, this big album that everyone has high expectations for. And Travis Scott's never been more famous, with Kylie Jenner and whatnot. And Mac can just exist, and he can make his artsy fartsy project, have the critics like it, have his core fans that are still around like it, and keep doing what he's doing. It's really like low stakes for him in the best possible way. And I think that's great. And I agree. I think with more fine tuning of the lyrics and stuff, I think he can continue to improve, and he's going to have a long ass career. And crazy that he's been around so long and he's still only 26.
Yeah. Crazy, man.
He's still kind of slept on. A lot of people either stopped listening to him as he started changing because they were more fans of the frat rap, or didn't like frat rap, which is totally defensible stance, and never realized that he got way better and changed. So I feel like there's still, fans to be had for Mac.
Yeah.
So,
I've talked about
work for him.
I've talked about this on the pod, how I got in a brief Twitter back and forth with Hoodie Allen back in our college days, about like 6 or 7 years ago. About this was right after Blue Slide Park came out, and I was saying, I think Mac is better than Hoodie Allen, and Hoodie Allen took exception, and we had a short exchange. But it's funny because we reviewed Hoodie Allen last year, and he was somebody I was out on, and I think he actually started to mature as well. Obviously, a different sound, and he still, I think, holds more to that poppy, partyish sound that Mac has definitely moved away from. But it's nice to see them both maturing and moving up in different ways. Obviously, Mac a different level of artist and respect, but just funny to think about. Why don't we move on to somebody who I know you were really pumped for this album, and I saw your tweets, and I know it didn't necessarily, it wasn't what you expected. YG's Still Dangerous, his follow up to 2016's Stay Dangerous, to Still Breezy from 2016. Talk to me about this album, Dave.
Yeah, man. YG. Fuck, man. I'm so disappointed with this.
How would you describe YG as an artist?
Yeah, well, he became a really exciting artist in 2014. He started out as this LA mixtape rapper. Gets put on the map with Tootin' Boot It from like 09, which featured Ty Dolla $ign also. And you were like, oh, YG, cool. And then his debut album, My Crazy Life, comes out. DJ Mustard, hot on the scene with the fucking hottest beats, the producer of the year, right? And then you're like, fuck, YG is like way better than we ever thought possible. And there were just bangers on that. And of course, My Hitta was the big hit. And then 2016, which we reviewed first year of the pod. Check it out, Stuff on Conscious Pod. Still Brazy comes out, and not only is it another great West Coast record like My Crazy Life, but now it's a throwback West Coast record with California G-Funk, like he's fucking Dr. Dre, and he has hits again like Why You Always Hatin' with Drake, and Still Brazy, the title track. Then he also has Fuck Donald Trump, the viral song from the album.
Yeah.
But then he also has Blacks and Browns and Police Get Away with Murder, right? And he's got like these lyrical songs about the treatment of black people and the Mexican sentiment, right? And I was like, wow, there's a lot to YG, despite the fact that he's still a hard, authentic ass gangster rapper from fucking Compton, right? Yeah. Like, wow, there's a lot to like here. And the songs are great too. It's like, it really was the whole package. And then it gets Stay Dangerous, and it's just, I mean, to be charitable, I would say he was running in place on this record. But frankly, I think it's a step backward, given the momentum he had critically. He throws away the throwback sound, which is fine. I'm not saying you have to be a throwback record. Again, someone like Joey Badass started out with a throwback New York sound. He moved away from that. That's fine. But what he replaced it with is just generic and doesn't feel special. And frankly, I think a lot of the songs, he doesn't really sound like himself. I think Bombtown's Finest, the last songs where he finally said, oh wait, there's like that YG cadence and YG charisma we remember, but on a lot of Stay Dangerous, it just felt generic, and YG hasn't felt generic in 4 years. So I was just very disappointed.
Yeah, and I also felt like a lot of his rhymes on this were lazy. I can't remember which song it was, but he actually like starts to recite like Duck Duck Goose on one of the songs, and I was like, dude, like you started off your last album with Who Shot Me, like an introspective look at actually being shot in the studio, and then like that kind of set the tone for the whole record and where you were going. And then talking about freaking Duck Duck Goose on this album, it was a little disappointing. And I also thought, DJ Mustard isn't what he used to be, but still, like, he used to have that like bouncy, like, just it would just pull you into the songs, and now these kind of fell flat. Other than maybe we talked about this off air, but Too Cocky seems to be the song that I think everybody's take away from this album, saying that there's still a lot to be excited for with YG, and there is. I mean, this is a bad record. It doesn't mean he's a bad artist, and he's got an incredible look going on right now. Those like that leather shoes with those small glasses, freaking hilarious, man. But just, I mean, for someone that moves so deep lyrically from where My Crazy Life was to Still Brazy, and then this, I don't know, it's disappointing, and I hope he's able to find some people that push him a little bit, because he also seems to just kind of feel content with where he's at.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he's entitled to a victory lap. Fine. I just thought it would just come out a little better. That's all. And I was kind of worried going in just because all the singles leading up, Suwoo, Big Bank, and then Handgun with Rocky, and I was like, yeah, none of this really sounds like YG. Like Big Bank's that's just a fucking trap record. Anyone could have made that. And guess what? The best part's Nicki, not YG. So it's like, and Handgun, I every day I decide I like it or I don't like it. I don't know. And Suwoo was forgettable. So it's like, I don't know. I was just flat out underwhelmed. And I think 666 with Young Boy's all right. I think Power with Dollar Sign's fine. I thought Slay, Quavo's got a generic hook on there, but it's still a catchy ass hook, So, yeah, I don't have a lot to say. I wish I liked it more. I really did, really do.
I hate seeing you this way, man. I know that usually you can find some positives even in the records most people don't like. What about Travis Scott? So, I mean, this is a guy who, he's dropping his third album. He had Rodeo back in, what was that, 14?
15.
And 15, and then, what's it called? Something at Night. It says
Birds in the Trap sing McKnight in 2016.
Yeah. And then he had Huncho Jack with Quavo, which was an underwhelming project. But his star has really, you mentioned this earlier, really risen up. I mean, he headlined Governor's Ball. He just headlined Osheaga. I think it was literally last night or maybe 2 nights ago.
It was a release date.
Yeah. Friday. So it was Friday. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, this is a guy who, I mean, if you look at festivals and just popularity, seems to be skyrocketing. But I'm not sure if his catalog necessarily warrants that. You saw him at Governor's Ball. You said Stargazing was an absolute hit and that he brought a ton of energy and the set was crazy. So I was expecting a lot from this album. And Astroworld, first of all, he kind of just dropped the release day out of nowhere.
Yep.
And then it's an hour long. And I was like, oh, here we go. It's either going to be a lot of good, a lot of bad. And I thought it was good and a lot of mediocre. I don't know if there's a lot to really dislike on this album, but I'm not a big Travis Scott fan. So as someone that's a little bit more well-versed, a little bit more familiar, is this what you were expecting? Because I hear people were waiting for this album for a long time.
Oh yeah. I mean, Friday was dominating Twitter. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I can't quite remember where exactly the Astroworld hype came from, but Travis first started teasing Astroworld at his next album in 2017.
Yep.
At the time, I was like, nah, bro, we good. Rodeo is 15, Birds and Trap is 16. You can take some time. It's fine. And he took, almost over half a year longer, which was cool, man. And, remember he was in Hawaii on his Dark Twisted Fantasy shit with a lot of these producers. And it really seemed like he was putting in effort because Travis Scott's a really interesting artist. Just the story about him, fame not even included. It's just he came up as a producer, a really good producer working with Kanye. He signed the good music on Very Good Beats imprint as a producer. He's a producer signed to Ye, and he's an artist signed to whoever he's with. It's not Universal. And Rodeo comes out in 15. He dropped the Al Faro mixtape, and Upper Echelon comes out. Like, all right, Travis can get hype. There's some good shit on here, and Drugs You Should Try It, and Hell of a Night, and then he had Mama City. He had some songs from the point he was like, there's something here, and which he plays a lot of those live still. And Rodeo comes out in 15, and obviously he's big. I think it's his most viewed YouTube video still, but Antidote, big radio hit from that, right? Banger. But a lot of the underappreciated songs on Rodeo, like Maria, I'm Drunk, and Now 210, you're like, oh wow, like there's something. Like I don't know if he totally landed on Rodeo, but there's something going on with Travis Scott. And Birds and Trap comes out, an album that I had in my top 5 for 2016. But Birds and Trap is not like Rodeo. All that like potential and like things we could see with him. He didn't really do those. He just kind of went the other way, went more trappy, but he also had a lot of fucking bangers and hits on Birds in the Trap. A lot of his fans were really into it. So Astral, I wasn't really sure what he was going to do. And frankly, I don't think he went back to the Rodeo thing. What I think really shines about Astral is that the fucking sound really shows that he was in Hawaii working with all these people. Sonny Digital, Wonder Girl, fucking Take Keith is on here, Hit Boy's on here, right? He's got Murderer's Row of producers of the moment, and I think it flows really well. I think Butterfly Effect, a single from last year, sounds really great in the sequence of this album.
Yep.
Another one of his songs, like Stargazing, that's way more hype when he performs it live than the studio version. But yeah, I think obviously he's not Kendrick Lamar with the pen. He is suspect. Some clunkers like Sip the Remy, Keep It Papoose or whatever.
Yeah.
Or I tell her BYOB, that mean bring your own booze. Bro,
yeah.
Literally none of your fans need that explained to you. Come on. I think the vibe is what people wanted, and I think there's a lot of hits on here. But there's filler. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, there's definitely filler to it, but sicko mode with Drake, I think people are going to point to. I think that song is hot. Dude.
That production is ridiculous. There's 3 beat flips, 4 producers on it, but I think it's the middle part, which I think is Hit Boy. Like you just listen now with great headphones. That's a masterclass of production. That's before you figured out that Drake and Travis killed it.
Yeah, and having that right following Carousel, which Frank Ocean like semi-rapping, semi-singing on that, which I also think is a hot song. And then later on, you have Stop Trying to Be God, which I think actually is a really great song. If you have some really good headphones on, you can hear a lot of little things in the production of that. And then a song like Skeletons, he has freaking Kevin Parker from Tame Impala making a beat for him on this with The Weeknd and Pharrell on this track. Crazy. Like he's, you talk about like Mac Miller's album and how he has a sound, but it's kind of a small record. Does he have any features on it? I think it's just him, right?
I think so.
I think it's just
Cat on an instrument.
Right. But no singing features. And then all right, he might have had Snoop Dogg, I think, behind one of them, maybe. I don't know.
Nothing credited.
Okay. And then you come to this, and you have all these collaborations and all these different influences, all these producers, all these musicians. This is why you come. And, doing some reading, I saw a lot of people saying he was or people have compared him to Kanye in the way that he's a great collaborator, and he can get a lot of people to come to these records and he can get the best out of them when they come. And if you're comparing it, if you're comparing him as an artist just in that vein, I think he's up there because pretty much everybody that comes on, except for obviously Nav, who's been clowned online incessantly. I think everybody that comes on this does pretty well. Sway Lee also stood out to me a lot in this, sounding really good.
Yeah, I mean, Sway Lee's got background vocals on Sicko Mode, and he's got that real feature on R&B Screw.
Yep.
You mentioned Stop Trying to Be God. That has an obvious James Blake performance, but Stevie Wonder's on the harmonica. His team confirmed that. And 21 Savage, I thought actually had a really good verse on NC-17. There's a really cool line about not being signed to Ye, and then the Babyface line. 21, bringing it. That was not a phoned-in verse. Good job. No bystanders. You got Check West and Juice WRLD on there, and of course the whole thing was executive produced by Mike Dean, who is like Travis Scott from Houston, someone who reps Houston. And I mean, there's a Goody Mob interpolation on here, so I think Travis's Houston influence, something he openly reps, is also present on this. So yeah, I think it definitely landed. It definitely hit.
Definitely. It's just to talk about 21 real quick. I was thinking about him this weekend because he's had a couple of features this year, and I can't recall the songs off my head, but I feel like every time I hear him come in, I'm like, oh, 21 just killed that. And I feel like he's starting to be almost like 2 Chainz in a way, where 2 Chainz will come on a track and just drop like a heater, and then he's gone. You're like, holy shit, he just killed that.
I like that comparison, actually. That's great. And it's funny because first in the trap, 21 was featured on Outside. And that was really the first feature I really liked from 21. When he first came up, I was like, I don't know about this dude, but he got way better, obviously. And he's on quite the run. So, and obviously there's a song with Takeoff and Quavo on here too, which I think is pretty solid as well. So, and then Astro Thunder, great vibe song, also happens to have John Mayer and Thundercat make the song. And then towards the end, Houston Fornication, I liked. There's some, I mean, there's some actually some solid lines about his relationship with Kylie on here. So I think, yeah, I've there's a lot of riding on this. It could have really flopped due to expectations, but I think most people are going to be really happy with this, whether it's just going back to stuff like sicko mode or putting it on wherever and just letting it kind of vibe out. So yeah, I think it's a successful record for Travis and something he needed, given how famous he is. A lot of the industry's been behind him a long time. He's really need to deliver on a project that's like good on all accounts, right? So
Absolutely.
I think it's a good record that we'll be going back to, no doubt.
Yeah, and we added what song do we add on there? Sicko mode or
No, we added
stargazing, obviously. Yeah, so check that out. You can go to our Twitter and click through the links there, and there's our Nowstalgia Best of 2018 Spotify playlist. Give it a listen. It's enough music for today. Why don't we talk about Succession? I mean, I can't remember. I mean, I can't remember, but for this year, there haven't been many TV shows where I felt like I needed to watch the finale or I needed to watch the episode as soon as possible to be part of the conversation. And I think this is the first time this year a show has really grabbed the zeitgeist in that way, and people feel like they wanted to be talking about it immediately after it happened. Last night was the 10th episode of the first season of Succession, which follows the Roy family, loosely based off the Murdoch family in real life. And it follows Logan Roy and Royco, right? It's Waystar Royco.
Yes.
Yeah, Waystar Royco, media company, and his 3 children, Kendall, Siobhan. Oh no, 4 children: Connor, Kendall, Siobhan, and Roman. I forget about fucking Connor. And then he comes in last night wanting to be, president. All of a sudden, it's like, what the fuck?
That's the seed, bro.
Yeah, and it's really just about how this family like fights for power, how they try to gain favor with their father, and how they just interact as a family in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
I think when we mentioned it on the pod 11 weeks ago or so, I said I was not going to check the show out because just with the way things are right now, political climate, following a Trump-like figure on a TV show, I want to kind of forget about that kind of stuff. Didn't really seem appealing in my downtime. But man, this show surprised the hell out of me. The first 3 episodes, a little slow. It takes a little build up, but there's enough there to say, I'm kind of interested. And then episode 4 hits, and if we're going to be going into spoilers, so after I give this breakdown or my breakdown on it, you might want to jump off. Once episode 4 hits, it's like a fucking rocket. Like, they found their stride. They found exactly what to do with each character to make them interesting and appealing, and they nailed it. So obviously I'm high on it. Give me your non-spoiler reaction to this show.
Yeah, and I think you hit on some of them, but there's a lot of surface level, like boilerplate things people were talking about at the beginning. First 3 episodes, wasn't really into it, kind of slow.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Billions with Veep.
Yeah,
I don't like these people. I can't relate with the 1%ers, especially in today's climate. Like, all these reasons people are given to not like it, right?
Yeah.
And you spoke to the zeitgeist, and in a year without Game of Thrones, in a year without Stranger Things, even there was no monoculture show. I think it's close to the best show of the year, but shows like Atlanta and Barry and Killing Eve, those did not command such a week to week ride the way Succession did as it grew. I think coming out in the summer was probably the best possible time for the show, given that it didn't have to compete with anyone. HBO gave it a good push, and away we were. But yeah, I think the show was incredibly smart, compelling, always entertaining, and of course funny, and coupled by great performances that are none of these are A-list actors, but good actors, people you might have recognized or seen before, but most people you don't know of. And even someone like Brian Cox, who's the most famous actor on the show, he's not a lot of people like are Brian Cox stans, right? So that's compelling. The fact that it wasn't based on a previous IP, it wasn't a mystery box show.
Yep.
Like, it was just an original story about power dynamics and family, and I think it's incredibly well done, and it's so rewarding as the show finishes out the first season. It's the first season that can stand alone. The show can end right now, and everyone be pretty satisfied. It can also go in any direction for season 2. So, cannot recommend it more highly. Fantastic show.
Yeah, we're gonna be jumping into spoilers now. So if you haven't watched the show, take some time. I don't recommend you binge it because I think it's a show you should digest a little bit, but uh, finish it in like 2 or 3 weeks and come back and check this out. Share it with your friends in the meantime who have watched it because uh, I want a lot of people to be talking about this with us because this show commands it. I mean, you touched on a lot of the things that overcame a lot of the reasons people gave to not watch it. It's a show where you really don't like any of the people, but
Mhm.
you're captivated by it. And obviously, I think Kendall and his father and their relationship seems to be, the a plot, the main story of the season. But each relationship is very interesting with Logan. But why don't we start with Kendall? Because I thought Jeremy Strong was fantastic in this, and people probably know him from he had a small role in The Big Sick.
Big Short, not the
Big Short. Sorry, not The Big Sick. Big Short. I don't really know what else you might have seen him in.
He was in some smaller stuff, but he was really more of a stage actor, honestly.
Right.
But he's the clear standout performer just because the arc Kendall has throughout the season. Again, those first 3 episodes, it starts out, it's like Kendall's by and large the protagonist for the audience. And it's like, yeah, but like, do I like this dude? Do I care about this dude? And yeah, it's tough to like him throughout the season. But man, does what happened to him make for good TV. And again, I think this show is so smartly made and so expertly scripted, but that it doesn't come off as cartoonish, right? And I think I saw some points going around that's like Kendall doesn't have like some big speech versus Logan, right? He doesn't have like an Aaron Sorkin come up its moment, right? It's just he just kind of goes up and then goes back down, and he's like, trying to take down his dad, and he keeps getting put down, and I think the whole arc is done so well. And Jeremy Strong, whether he's acting a character that sometimes sober, sometimes not, having compel a lot of emotion for an actor who is a bad communicator. It's hard to get across as an actor. So I think he was great. And Brian Cox is another actor who performance that really grew throughout the season, both as Logan overcame a stroke and got his strength, but also as they gave Logan more to do throughout the season, and kind of came clear what his character really was, how much monstrous he was, right? So yeah, I think their relationship was so compelling, and that's actually something about season 2 that I really, you could talk yourself into any new plot just because like where they go from here. They can't run back what happened with Logan or Kendall again,
Right. Yeah, you were talking about how he conveys so much without having a character that can really speak well. I'm thinking about last night's episode, like watching him walk up the staircase to give his father the proposal to buy the bear hug, and man, like you just watching him walk through that crowd, and you could almost see like every emotion that was going through his head in that scene. It's so well portrayed, and then his big line is, "I wanna do good things." Nailed it, dude. But you knew everything he was going through in that moment, and it's kind of crazy when probably the strongest thing he did all season against his dad called him a beast to his face. Other than that, every attempt he had, "You're a beast," fell short. And man, Logan is my winner of this season only because guy had a stroke. Which, I want to talk about writing. What a smart thing to do at the end of the first episode, because not only are you like, oh, I wonder how this is going to affect the rest of the family, but then it really pushes Kendall's storyline because he feels like in that moment he needs to take on the head role, and then it's taken away from him, but he still wants it, and it's such a great back and forth. But I mean, he overcomes the stroke, he overcomes a potential overthrow of him, then he stops the bear hug when he gets the dirt on Kendall at the end. The whole time he is battling Siobhan's, the senator, the person Siobhan's standing for.
Sanders.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on. What other performances really stood out to you from this season?
Well, yeah, I think the show again doesn't have any like A-listers really besides Brian Cox, just because of longevity. but it's a deep cast of talented performers, right?
Mhm.
I mean, obviously all the kids are really good. Kieran Culkin as Roman, I think his performance is just interesting on a surface level, just because he's more like tuned up and amped up as a performer in those first few episodes, and then as they kind of like tweak Roman, the show gets stronger. Don't have a direct correlation, but something that happened. But Kieran Culkin's really good. I mean, again, he's Macaulay's brother. Rory Culkin's a little
Yep.
hot right now, but Kieran was in Fargo season 2, for example. Sarah Snook is great as Shiv. I think Shiv is probably the most competent of the kids, but also as you go through the season, also really hard to like and root for.
Yeah.
And shout out to her as an Australian, really nailing the American English
Seriously.
accent. Matthew McFadden as Tom, also an Englishman, doing a really good American accent. And I think he's awesome. And he's someone who's like, oh, you didn't really recognize him, but yeah, he was in all these British prestige shows like Howard's End this year. And again, it's so rewarding to have TV do what it used to do all the time back in the day. Oh, who's this dude? Oh wow, I like this dude now. I didn't really know who he was.
Right.
And Alan Ruck, more famous than the other people, as Connor, another one who he's like a lefty specialist in baseball. They use him for special roles in the show, and they start expanding his role to like a multi-inning reliever by the end, right?
Yeah.
And like you remember in the beginning, it was like, oh, let me have these freakouts at the dinner thing, right? And it has these great moments. But then like by the end, as they start to develop his relationship with his not really girlfriend,
the hooker.
and then he has some ridiculous things said in the finale leading up to that. So I liked him a lot. And then Nick Braun, revelation, definitely the big winner in terms of talent as Cousin Greg. Again, another character who starts as strictly comic relief, strictly someone for Tom to belittle, and they have a great relationship on the show, great chemistry. But then he starts to be, get a little Machiavellian, right? As Kendall says, and really develop as a character and someone who I'm really curious to see what continues to happen to him. Break the fucking egg. And even like some of the supporting characters, like Arian Moyed as Stewie. He's great too. So I think the whole cast is fucking bananas in a great way.
Yeah, it's funny to think about where each character is really going what their motivations are. And I feel like the last episode did a really great job. The finale did a really great job of taking the three main ones, Shiv, Kendall, and Roman. I keep wanting to say Romulus because they call him Romulus so many times by the end. And like turning them back into children. Obviously Kendall after he crashed into the water and kind of killed that guy. It's hard to, basically Chappaquiddick 2.0. Just the way he looks the next day is very like childish and small. That was a smart to put him with Cousin Greg because he's just Nick Braun's such a big or tall guy. Shiv with Tom and basically being like a commitment phobe and feeling like she can't really love anybody and make that sort of like long-term solo commitment. And then
on her wedding night at that.
And then Roman watches his big thing to impress his dad literally blow up and then just wipes his mouth and acts like he didn't even know. Watching all three of them turn back into children was just incredible TV. And then you see Tom and how he's starting to kind of just get eaten alive by this family. Goes from being this like pretty sweet guy who will fuck with Cousin Greg to actually being cold-blooded killer, making him put the wine back in the wine bottle because that was his parents' contribution to the wedding. So and Greg, like you said, he's the one who's growing the most, but he's probably the one that you can most purely root for because he's such a bystander. And he even says like, I'm glad you're buying this out because we need these family politics to stop. We need like all this evil backstabbing to stop. And it's like, no, dude, you don't get it. This is the family. This is the game, which is, and that's Logan's whole thing. He's
at and Cousin Greg's at the crux of one of the untapped threads for next season. All the documents he copied about sexual misconduct on the cruise line, right? That we still don't really know how the extent of it per se, even worse. And you mentioned making the kids be back as kids again. Again, they're all like 30 something adults in real
Mhm.
in the show, but I think that's how Logan knows how to handle his kids when they're actually acting as kids. He
Mhm.
never, as far as we know, he never could really handle Logan or Kendall becoming an important member of the company.
Mhm.
Part of that's Kendall's fault, being unreliable and maybe not as smart as he thinks he is, But it's interesting to see the kind of that full circle where like Logan has never felt more in control than he is in the finale, and judging off watching the pilot and then having Kendall plan not one but two coups, you just never would have expected it to end this go this way.
Yeah. It's I think they did a really good job using things that could very easily have moved the season different direction just as ways to portray uh people as people. You talk about um like all the stuff with Connor and his hooker girlfriend, but really just trying to find somebody that he loves and can take care of and that can depend on him. And how kind of heartbreaking that is, that it has to be this person that he was literally paying to to be with him. You talk about Kendall with his children and how that was used to really kind of show his own like insecurities and his own inability to feel like he has a handle on his life and what it means to be an adult. And then his drug use as well, which can usually kind of derail a season. That's what his whole arc could have become about, but it was used more as just a way to show that this was a person who has a lot of demons and can't really cope. And obviously, it was used as a driving force towards like the big Chappaquiddick moment.
Driving force, eh?
There we go. But yeah, just and a lot of really great plotting and writing, and the show can, like you said, can go in 100 different directions with all the stuff that they've talked about this season. Do you think this is a show that can have like a long standing time on HBO? Because like we said, we don't really have characters here that we like other than maybe Greg
Yeah,
and Tom.
I think 3 seasons would be perfect. You
Yeah.
know, you kind of seems like that could be you could foresee that Jesse Armstrong, the showrunner,
Yeah.
probably had, and the writer and the creator of the show, he probably has something like that in mind. And this isn't on Showtime. Billions on Showtime, which by all
Right.
accounts, there's 3 seasons has never been better. That shit going for 7 seasons because it's Showtime. That's just what
Oh
they do.
yeah.
But I don't think they'll let the session go that deep. This is not like Veep per se, which is straight comedy. I think there's this should be a little shorter. And fuck, they run such a heater. Episode 6 is when Kendall has the failed coup with the trafficking shit, right?
Hmm.
And you have Austerlitz, that great episode when they go on that like fake family retreat, right?
Yeah.
And then Prague, probably just the flat out funniest episode of the season where they have
Hmm.
the bachelor party for Tom and the load swallowing. And then the final 2 episodes are all around the wedding, and it's just everything coming to a head. And they had such momentum going into the finale, and then they managed to top it with perhaps the best episode of the season.
Yep.
So I would hope that they do less. I'd rather be wanting more than them go too long, just because it's just so well written and so smart. I would hate to see it decline in quality.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, I think once Logan dies, which I think will probably be how this show will end eventually. Rupert Murdoch's family, or Rupert Murdoch, was sold the business before anyone in his family could actually take it over. So, if they're following that as a blueprint, they have a great ending already in place. This is obviously, I think, the most popular show on TV right now. Do you think that if like Thrones, for example, was coming back later on in the year, let's say they were dropping their last season, would this show have been something everybody was as excited for, or do you think it's like a lack of huge shows right now that kind of led this to be this popular?
Yeah, I think the timing is definitely that. Just
Mm.
because it was a week to week show, I think that probably benefited a slow
Yeah.
start. People were more inclined to give it a shot when there was only one episode for them to watch. I'm like, all right, let me check it again. Still wasn't really feeling two, but they watched it. So if they had dropped 10 at once, a lot more people would have just bailed just because it's more intimidating, right? So
Mhm.
I think it's definitely the product of the environment we're in. I mean, we're gonna have some big shows coming back in the fall. It'll be hard to get eyeballs, but I mean, it came out perfect time. And yeah, I mean, in fact, I just don't think HBO probably wouldn't have ran this against Thrones.
Right.
To be fair,
Yeah, and they got Insecure coming back right now. Sharp Objects wrapping up soon. HBO is still pumping out that content. They're not going to be lacking for it, but
coming back before we know it next month.
Man, crazy! This year is freaking flying by. But yeah, if you haven't checked out Secession, give it 4 episodes. And if I know it's hard to say like, oh, stick with the show for 4 hours because time is valuable, especially when you have so many options to choose from. But this is really a show that if you can get past the 4th episode, I think you'll be hooked and glad that you stuck with it.
Very rewarding.
Also, shout out Nick Britell, the guy that did the soundtrack and the main opening. That piano,
yeah. Pretty cute,
amazing, perfect. Show just overall is a class show, so definitely check it out. What's on the docket for next week, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, next week we're gonna be talking about
Saul,
Better Call Saul premiere, season 4 premiere. We didn't really talk about Better Call Saul season 3 last year just because you're behind. We were watching different times.
Yep.
So I'm excited to get into that. Obviously, I love season 3, and we got Black Klansman coming up from Spike Lee. We got the Beth's record coming out. We're gonna get to Killing Eve soon.
Yep.
Something we've been talking about, finally getting to right before the Emmys at this point. So yeah, we got plenty of stuff coming. Bigger albums on the horizon we'll be getting to as well. But yeah, so look out. Next week should be packed.
Yeah, a lot of content. We'll also be giving a little preview of what we're excited for the fall. A lot of interesting things. Vampire Weekend headline Lala this past week, and I streamed their set live, and they crushed it. They played A-Punk 3 times in a row after they came out, which I thought was an interesting choice. But overall, they sounded great, and I'm really excited to have them back and have their new album coming out soon. So we'll be talking about that and other things we're excited for the fall. So stay tuned. Subscribe down below. Go to soundcloud.com/nostalgiapod. Hit us up on Twitter at Nowstalgia, NostalgiaPod. Dave at Martin Swagger. Me at Sheeny World Peace. Any last thoughts for today, Dave?
Check out our Spotify playlist once more, just because we put a lot of time into that, and it's fucking 80 songs now. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's up there.
A lot of tunes, all genres. There's definitely stuff you missed on there, so hit that up.
Don't bring a dildo made of Swiss cheese to a knife fight. Peace out.